Good evening, folks. Just going to do a breakdown on my trade today on pound yen. So I got involved in a sell, and this came after the 4-hour candle, which closed at 2 p.m. And just going to talk a little bit about why I got involved, my sort of thoughts on the trade. And to be honest, I didn't really think it was a great trade. I think it was a trade that I could have just allowed to play out, and just based solely on where we are in the market and the sort of reactions we were seeing at that area. But it was a winning trade and it did work out, which is great. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about that. And the trade was solely focused on a candle closing in this zone. So I have marked up a monthly resistance all the way down to this daily support, and this is a range of 37 pips. And as you can see from my little circular oval here, whatever you call this, this is sort of, I'm just marking out my clean traffic. So kind of like my position on Monday, I wanted to see a candle close in the zone. Then I would get involved in a buy when a support forms. So it's the exact same things happening here, only the opposite. Once I get a close in this zone, I'll look for a short when I get a resistance. Okay, now this sort of sell in this area is a lot different to here. The reason is on the higher time frames, we are actually trading almost at the bottom of the higher time frame support zone. Okay, so it's more difficult to short here because essentially we're shorting, you could say, at the bottom. But that is the reason I wanted to take this position was I was looking for a confirmation first. So if I didn't receive, or if I didn't get a closure within this range, I wouldn't have taken this position. And one area I wanted to highlight was this low. Okay, so as we can see that when price had pushed out, let me just change that color. I always do that, get the color wrong. So when you push out, we form a resistance, we push down and form a support, and then we continue on, right? So this is basically the support zone, okay? And I was paying close attention to this level because of what we can see to the right. Every time we push down into this zone, we reject. We've done it once here, twice here, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's every time we come in here, we see an instant reaction. Okay, so what I'm looking for is not only a closure within this zone, but I'm looking for a closure below 160, 194. That to me will give me confirmation. Okay, and it just happened to be that the hourly close that closed in the zone was also the last hour of the 4-hour candle. So we also had the hourly close within here. And as we can see, even looking at the hourly time frame, every time we've come down to this level at 194, we have rejected off it and we have failed to close below. So as soon as I got the close below, that was my confirmation to then look for resistance. Now, to be honest, the sales came from London. Okay, you know, you could be saying, well, why am I selling down here? I'm selling at the bottom, where you should realistically be buying from if you're trading a range, because you want to be buying at the bottom of the range and selling at the top of the range, not the other way around. But the reason I got involved in this is because it fitted the criteria that I wanted to see. Okay, but like I said, the sales did come from London, and this was something I was talking with Fred about earlier, that because we did close within Asian range, there was a potential for price to test the bottom of the range when we rejected this higher time frame resistance. So when we had the closure below, so we've got our 4-hour confirmation and our 1-hour confirmation. Of course, the 4 hours is a higher time frame, so it's an even stronger confirmation. As we can see, what price is doing on the way down is it's putting in a new support, putting up a resistance, breaking the low and forming a new low, pushing up, forming a lower resistance, and now we've created a new low. So essentially what I want to see is I want to see these levels respected. If we had a candle close back above here, it would just really invalidate what I'm looking for, because to me, if price pulls down, it can use this resistance as a support to then continue. And basically looking at this from a range trade, we're sort of at the bottom of the range. Okay, so we want candles to be going this way, not this way. But it makes sense for price to reject here based off of the rejections that we can see to the left. So when this closed, I dropped down to the 50-minute time frame. And if I just skip forward this candle, so this is obviously the brand new 4-hour. So as soon as this candle closed, the brand new 4-hour pushed up. Okay, so on this time frame, the most recent support and resistance is this zone here, right? This is the most recent. Okay, so this first 15-minute candle pushed up and reacted at the resistance. So essentially, I don't want to really be seeing any closes above here, because if we see closes above here, like I said before, we can come down and then we can start to move up. So I want to be seeing that level respected. Just went a little bit too far there. But if I just draw that back in again, that is what we've seen. So the next 15-minute candle also pushed up, right? It tried to break out, but what it's been doing is then it's reacted and rejected the most recent resistance. So this is a good sign for me, right? This is what I want to see. Now, what this candle alone, this bearish candle, is resistance, okay? But it's not a strong confirmation. You know, when this candle printed, I didn't jump into a sell. To me, that's not attractive. You know, it's not a solid confirmation. If, for example, if the bearish candle had have closed something like this and maybe closed back below the support, then I most likely would have got involved in that trade, because I'm expecting this to happen, right? And the fact that we have closed below the support means that any candle that is opening from here and pushing up could use that support as a resistance and reject, and then you could potentially have a candle like that moving down. That's an awful wick, by the way, but that's the sort of idea. That's what I'm thinking, right, at this time. Now, the fact that this candle formed a weak resistance, what I wanted to do then is I wanted to see how that actually formed. So what I done was I jumped down to the 5-minute time frame, and I wasn't using this specifically for an entry. I was just looking at the 5-minute time frame to understand the structure, to understand what has happened within this wick region here. Okay, so obviously prices reacted at the resistance, but what has it formed in order for it to do that? So if I drop down to the 5-minute time frame, we can see here that what price has done is price has pushed up, formed a resistance, it's pushed down, and then it's pushed up, formed a support, right? And then it's formed a new resistance. So essentially what I'm seeing here is like a mini range, a mini sort of pocket here, right? Which is obviously the reason that this is formed the way it has is because of what is left, because of this. Okay, so essentially that is what we're working with. Okay, and what I identified was, if I just snap back to the 15-minute, and then go back to the 5. So what I was looking at was this. So see this candle that formed the resistance. I was basically looking at the sort of the low of that candle. Okay, so I'm looking at this as a potential range, right? And what I'm sort of thinking at this time is, well, if I was to get involved, where would I want to get involved? If candles are starting to leave this area, then I may give it a crack. Okay, because if we open up on the new 15-minute candle and we start to push up from here. We maybe range a little bit, and then we maybe fail to break above because we're sort of reacting at that sort of level across the board, and we start to break down. To me, that is a sign that we're not going to go up. And then what we're going to do is price is likely to continue down, and that is going to give us our triangle. Okay, so if I bring on my my short position, which is here, this is exactly where I got involved. So if I just bring this in a little bit, so what had happened is this 15-minute candle had closed. The next 15-minute candle opened, and this was the first 5 minutes of that candle. So it closed the way it did, but what it done was it pushed up, created like a top wick, and started to break down and started to break the low of here, which is my sort of interest area. And if I drop to the 1 minute, this is what it's basically doing on the 1 minute. Now, I wasn't looking at the 1 minute, but the 1 minute structure is quite interesting as well. And if I just drop back to the 5 minute and I push forward one more 5 minute, so that's what I done, or that's where I got involved. So when this started to break down, as we can see here, price then pushed into profit, okay, but it closed bullish. Now, at the time of this trade, I was basically saying to myself, well, I've waited for what I wanted to see. Prices gave me my confirmation. We have formed a resistance. However, it is a weak resistance. And realistically, what I would have preferred is the next candle to confirm that resistance for me. Okay, so I do believe I was a little bit eager within this, but what I was expecting was, if I go to the 15 minute, what I was expecting happened. What I wanted to see was big push down, right? Now, what's to say I'm going to get that? Price could have just as easily pushed up the other way because of where we are. We're at support lows, we're at range lows, and we're in a range. But price went to my favor, okay? And at the time of this candle, this is obviously the second. This is the third. Yes, this is the third candle, the third 5 minute candle of the 15-minute candle. So these three candles make up this one candle, okay? So when this candle formed a support and this candle started to push up, okay, this is where the high was of the current 15-minute candle at the time, okay? And see, to be honest, price maybe went roughly around 0.5, 14 pips in drawdown or so, right? And then it started to push down. And I was sort of asking myself, you know, should I have taken this trade? Asking myself things like, you know, will I exit the trade? How can I manage risk? And those types of things. Because essentially, the previous trade I took during the week was for 0.5%, okay? So I'm thinking, well, I need to maybe manage my positions, how I manage my winners, in terms of if I'm going to cut winners short, surely I need to have that same approach of my losers, because if I don't and I continue to take full percent losses, I'm never going to grow my account because I'm losing more than I'm winning. Okay, so that was definitely a thought in my mind at the time. So when this put in its high and started to break down, I was saying to myself, well, do you know what? See if the second 5 minute candle closes somewhere up here and formed and like confirms the support on the 5 minute chart. If it does something like this, I'm more than likely going to cut that position and just take a loss and accept why I lost, because it's most likely not the best area to trade based on where we are and what I've talked about previously. But what happened was price then fucking rocketed down, shot down, and what happened then was on the, if I go to the 15-minute chart, that is how the 15-minute closed. Okay, so that has now confirmed the resistance. Okay, and if I go to the next 15-minute candle, that is how the next 15-minute candle closed. So the reason I targeted the target is because of where we pulled back to. Where we pulled back to and where we formed the resistance gave me the opportunity to target the target. Say, for example, I didn't get involved in the trade whatsoever, and I was waiting for the resistance to be confirmed. If that candle had have closed, say, for example, down here below and broke the low of the 4-hour, then there's an opportunity for me to maybe get involved and test the range low. You know, like I says, this was my range, but there's no need for me to try and test the bottom of the range when price has formed its target. No, I'm targeting the target. I'm looking to get in and get out. I'm not looking to hold, and especially based off of the higher time frame and where we are at support lows and range lows, it doesn't make sense to hold position. So the risk to reward profile give me a great opportunity to get in and capture some of the move and get out at the right area. And that's exactly what happened, which is great. And as you can see, the next candle actually hit my take profit before closing bullish. And what I done was, when this 15-minute candle had closed bearish and the next one started to break down, I moved my stop loss to above the high of the previous candle, which was this. And that was roughly at around 0.5, which is usually what I've been closing positions out at. So I was happy to just take that. And then as price started to push down and came within, like, I'd say maybe 2 or 3 pips of the target, I just manually closed the position because I got more than what I had set out to, in a sense, and I was happy with that position. So all in all, it was a winning trade. However, based on where we were, it wasn't the best area to look for a short. However, I didn't just enter a short based off of a support and a resistance forming and not paying attention to where we are. I waited for my solid confirmation below areas which I identified where I wanted to see closures below. Then I looked for my resistance after that, and it worked, which was good. So that was sort of my breakdown on that and my sort of thoughts. You know, if we had have closed, say, deeper, then it's all sort of relative to where we are in the zone. There's every chance that this last hour had have closed at the bottom of the range, and we may not have got a pullback. We might have just continued. If that's the case, that's the case, you know. But I was able to get an option today based off of sort of my plan for the week, and my weekly outlook was solely based on not trading in the range and trading in my clear areas which I identify. And this area just is a little bit more tricky, not as clean as this, but it worked out. But definitely a couple of lessons learned today with this trade. And I think the big takeaway was it was a weak resistance. It would have been better to wait for a confirmation. And then, as we can see, what price has done since then has just ranged. So that's my breakdown. Thank you.